Welcome to More Than Mindset, the only podcast that bridges the gap between spirituality and success. Go beyond the mind with clarity and confidence coach Kim Guillory and learn how to integrate your passion to serve with your skills and experience to create a business you love. Let's get started. I have something a little different for you today. I recorded a webinar and I am sharing that with you. So I hope you enjoy. I am talking about the Punchline approach, the actual creation of the process, how it came about, what was my personal experience, and exactly what is contained in this process so that other people can utilize it. I'm really looking to get the message out to more people. I feel like this is a very important time, especially as we move into the holidays again. I just felt like it was a great time to offer some help, some assistance, a different way to maybe reframe, look at things different, and have more tools. So I hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome. This is the story about the Punchline approach, how to gain power and control of your life so that you can create better health, wealth, and relationships. So I'll give you a little lowdown on what this is going to look like. So I'm going to talk about the creation of the Punchline approach, the simple 5-step solution to create anything you want. It is very much like the law of attraction in action. And if you believe in the law of attraction, but it doesn't work for you, we're going to talk about that too. I am specifically talking to coaches, wellness entrepreneurs, healers who have been in the mindset and healing world. So this is specifically for you because I'm going to be discussing the tools of transformation and what makes this tool different and what makes it the same as the law of attraction. How does it integrate with human design? There's so many modalities that run right in alignment with this. And I'm going to talk about how that aligns and how you can use it in a way that makes total sense. Are you all up for that? Give me a yay in the chat. Tell me this, for those who are here, how many are familiar with the Punchline approach already? So you can put in the chat me, or you can just raise your hand. So I'm going to just talk about it, and then we're going to open the floor for Q&A. Okay. So first of all, why did I create the Punchline approach and what the heck is it? I had been doing probably about 30 years of personal development. Like as far back as I can remember, even being a teenager, I was at the library, I was reading books. I don't know where I got the idea from. I don't know how this worked for me. I just know that I was always very, very interested. And maybe that is because I am a 6 too. So for those of you who have 6s in your design, you might know what I'm talking about. We kind of come in with this knowing, but this world doesn't make sense. So we go on a journey to search, to find the solution to the madness, to present it to the world. We're in the 3rd stage. So I'm going to say it might be that, because otherwise it was not because of the household I was brought in. It was not because of the environment I was in. None of that makes sense because I was pretty much solo on my own. And I was just like led. I was very much guided by, you can call it the Holy Spirit or God or Christ or the universe, whatever words you choose to use. Source is basically what I use now because that makes more sense to me. But back in the day when I was a teenager, I was for sure praying to the Holy Spirit and asking for guidance. And this is where I landed. I have never stopped that search. I've never stopped inquiring and seeking. And I went from, I would say about that time, I was probably a teenager. I attempted suicide. I woke up from the suicide. I was very pissed. I woke up from the attempt. I was very, very angry. I felt isolated. I felt rejected and abandoned all over again and figured, what am I going to do? Because there is no way out of this place. That's what I was thinking very literally. I was very angry with Jesus and God and whoever that man was up there in the heavens who would not let me leave, would not take me out. So I did not realize that until I was in my 30s, that that's what had happened. And that awareness was huge. When I recognized the thoughts that were going on in my head, and I realized that I really was looking for how to figure out how to want to live. And I know that sounds a little depressing, but I kind of was depressed and I had been trying a lot of things and I couldn't find peace. I couldn't find belonging. I couldn't find I just couldn't find a way to get by that felt good. Like I don't have another way for it. I had the husband, I had the kids, I had the business, I had the money, I had the house. I had so much more than what I was raised with. It didn't make sense to me. And so I was on this spiritual, personal development, transformational journey. I had so many illnesses. I was always in pain. I had 15 surgeries. I was on multiple medications for over 20 years. And the more I would go to the doctor, the more they would double and triple my antidepressants. And it was a freaking nightmare. That's basically what my life was like. I was reading books. I've counted. I have over 400 books, plus all of the ones I have on Audibles. I was looking for answers. And then one day, after working these pieces, I had a breakthrough. I had an awareness, I had an understanding, and it all seemed to make sense. I remember specifically throwing books at the wall and cursing whoever was the reason why my life was so miserable and so terrible and why I couldn't get what I wanted. I was such a victim, such a martyr, and I was torn between the two. And I want to tell you what I mean by that, the victim and the martyr. I was a victim of life itself. It wasn't fair. I didn't understand. Why didn't I have parents? Why didn't I have things? Why didn't I have food? Why didn't I have, why? Why didn't I fit in with the rest of the kids? Why wasn't this working for me? And I could see other people that it was working for. So that was the victim aspect of it. But then because I was following spirituality and guidance and all of this stuff, then I actually became a martyr of that. So in other words, I wore my crown. It's like, this is what you do to get to heaven. The more I suffer, the more grace I will receive. That's literally where my mindset was. So I'm just curious if this makes sense to anyone else, where life is happening to you. Like, why does this keep happening to me? Or the other side, which is taking the cross and bearing the pain for the world. Where do you find yourself? Is it in between there? Have you experienced that already? I would just like to know from you guys, can you relate to that? Am I crazy? In between? Hell yes. Oh, this is so good already. Okay. Anybody else? Because it was fascinating when I recognized this. I was 29 years old and I had just had a full hysterectomy and I went crazy. Like literally, my head and my body were not connected. So my mind was telling me to get up and go see about the kids, get to work. And my body was like, hell no, I'm just going to hang out right here, come back later. Like that's what was happening. And it was hard. It was very hard. I was in chronic fatigue. I was very depressed. I was raising 5 kids. I had 2 businesses and I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I went to the doctor's office. He doubled my antidepressants. I'm now up to 350 milligrams of Wellbutrin twice a day. I'm taking Xanax and Klonopin to sleep, and I'm taking Adderall. That was my life. That was my life force, I'll say. I left through the back office crying uncontrollably. And so instead of walking through the lobby, they escorted me out the back door. That's where I found myself. I'm coming home and I crossed my husband and we stopped, pull over on the side of the road in front of the school. That's about 1.5 miles from here. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, I can't go home. He says, what do you mean you can't go home? I said, I can't go home. I don't know what to do. The doctor's office called the mental psych ward and I'm going check in. I don't know what else to do. Like these are all true story. I get there, I do. And he's just like shaking his head. He comes home, he sees about the kids. He's like, what about your business? So I'm just gonna lock the doors. I don't know what else to do. I get to the mental place about an hour away and I do my assessment. And they said, you don't qualify to stay in-house. Now, this is crazy, right? I should be excited. But I'm not, because guess what? It's just like waking up from the suicide. It's one more place that won't help me. It's one more place that I can't get into. It's one more rejection. It's one more no, you can't get help. That was the mentality that I was in. And it was very, very real. And I remember breaking down, crying in the psych assessment ward. And like, well, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. And I said, do you have any hotels? I knew I could not come back home. I had kids in high school and I had younger kids and I just couldn't get it together. And they said, yes, we have a Red Roof Inn down the road by the Honda place. No kidding. Like I drove to the Red Roof Inn. I signed in, got in my room, threw my self-help books on the bed, cried, went outside to take a breath. You'll never believe this. My kids' school bus drove up and it was an FBLA convention and they were in the hotel. I just couldn't get away from this. Oh, I really thought I was going to lose it. That was what it looked like for me. I was in between. I need to take care of everyone else. I can't take care of myself. Life keeps shitting on me. And I need to do all of these saintly things so I can go to heaven and earn my reward so I can get out of here and do it right. Like, no lie. This is like, I can say this now because I'm no longer 29 years old. I started attending private silent retreats. At that point, a friend said, Kim, you're not crazy. You just need a break. I didn't have anyone to leave my children with. I didn't have anyone to work in my business. I was just doing it all and I was losing it. So I went to a private retreat. I remember going to the nun. You had 15 minutes with the nun. I was at the Seneca in New Orleans. And I said, I should have been a nun. I missed it. I should be working for God. I'm so regretful. And this was a big change for me. She put her hand on my hand and she said, honey, you could do so much more out there in the world than we can do in here. And then I was like, okay, I didn't miss the boat. And so I came home from that, started really pulling it together. I did go through with the whole 6-week in outpatient, which that is where I learned about the martyr. I promise you I would circle back around. And the first time I heard this guy tell me I was a martyr, I was like, what? I was so insulted because I was so Christian. I was so working for God. And like, wait a minute, a martyr? I want to know if any of you here can relate. Any people pleasers here who just like keep putting themselves last because it's just the thing you do. And it makes it really hard to okay. Because I want to make sure that we're on the same page. And so when he's talking to me about the martyr, I was really insulted because this guy did not understand God. Did not understand what it was like to be a good Christian and doesn't know what it's like to help other people. I was like completely thrown away. This place is dangerous. I remember thinking that they're so selfish in here and they're not Christian-like. This place is dangerous. I got to get out of here. So anyway, I ended up when all that was over, I continued on the self-help journey. I found Pima Chodron, the book, When Things Fall Apart, was suggested to me by my rheumatologist. So I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I was sick bad. Like I was hurting. I was getting epidural injections in my stomach for abdominal pain. And I was getting Toradol injections in my back for chronic pain. I remember on the way to my daughter's field trip, I was with a nurse and she gave me the injection in the car. Like that's how I was active, but I was constantly hurting and in pain. And I was in the struggle between martyr and victim. Anyway, so whenever I really started catching on to this and I read the book, When Things Fall Apart, that was suggested by Dr. Lazaro right here. And he says, honey, fibromyalgia is a condition of behavior. I was like, what? Are you calling me a hypochondriac? That's exactly what I said when I looked at him. And he says, well, fibromyalgia comes from a pattern of behavior of doing, putting up with other people first, and then becoming the martyr of your own life. Most of my patients are older women who still have adult children living at their house that they are caretaking. They are taking care of the grandkids and the kids, and the adults do not have responsibility for their own life. And this is kind of the checking out of your own life. This is what, by the denial of self-care, you end up in chronic pain. You end up in disease. You end up with physical conditions. And it comes from the lack of self-love and self-care. Y'all, I was blown away. Couldn't believe he was telling me that. He was the first doctor who wasn't giving me more medication or more injections. So I was kind of freaking out. And he prescribed me 10 minutes a day of meditation, 2 times a day. That's it. That's what he told me. And the book by Pima Chodron, When Things Fall Apart. I read the book. I ate the book. And I started just sitting and breathing for 10 minutes because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have any tools. I didn't have any understanding. None of what I know now, like as far as yoga and meditation and coaching, and this was developed to me at that time. I still had little kids at home. I was still trying to figure it out and I was still running my business. So read that book. And then I started finding other things that related. And it all started to make sense. And I started to realize that there was something missing. I was in this office in the same building doing my friend's nails, and she told me she was diagnosed with 4th stage liver cancer. And I heard a voice in my head that says, why does she get to die and I have to stay? And it was a very loud, clear voice, and it woke me up. And I think the awakening came from all of the previous events. And it was like the walls just crumbled, and I had a sudden awareness of how depressed I was. And in that moment, I looked up and I said, well, fine. If I have to stay here, I'm not doing anything else that's not fun. Like, poof, new contract, new agreement. Listen here. When you say stuff like that, everything that's not working will fall apart. And again, maybe it's a 6'2" thing. Heck, I don't know. It was entering the second stage of life. And she ended up dying. That's the only reason I know the date that all of this happened is when I see it on her headstone, that I realized that this was around the year that this was around. So those were all leading into this big awakening. Of course, I've had some crazy mystical experiences since then that have continued to lead and guide me. I got into a lot of the mind-body work. I really started understanding disease and what repressed emotions do in the body. And it's really coming from unresolved trauma, but I want to give a new definition to trauma for you guys. So there's big T and little t. Big trauma is that something really big that's earth-shattering, shaking, that it's hard to move away from. Little trauma is the little tiny things. Both traumas are the separation from safety. I want you to let that sink in for a moment. Trauma is an event, a circumstance, something that happens that separates me from wholeness and from safety within myself. Does that make sense to any of you? Doesn't have to be like, I had a house fire, I had rape, I had the awakening from suicide, I had the parent who abandoned me, I had all of that stuff. Okay, so we can call that trauma. But when you put yourself online and somebody says something to you that actually separates you from safety, that makes you feel not worthy, not good enough, and start doubting yourself. Yes, divorce. Divorce is another one. That is trauma. And if you don't fully experience it all the way through, then it's repressed in the body. And when emotions repressed in the body, it's actually changing the cells of your system. It's the trauma, the emotions actually lodge into the areas of the body. So we're looking at the endocrine system, the digestive system, the tissues, the muscles, the bones, the blood, like in the physical meat suit. This meat suit is an opportunity for your soul to have an experience in the material world. If you didn't have this meat suit, you would be like Abraham Hicks, asking people, hey, can I use your voice? Can I use your body? Can I talk through you? Because we would be a bodiless entity. But because we are created as in the human being form, in the bodysuit, but we don't understand or we don't realize what the disconnection does. It leaves us empty. It leaves holes in our system. And we eject out of this physical human experience. And that is what creates the illness and disease, the separation, the depression. Depression is, I can't have what I need or want. I can't have what I desire most. And that creates a separation from belief, a separation from all that you are. So I'm about 20 minutes in. I don't want to take too much time on the story because I want to get into the punchline approach, but that's the story behind it. Is when I came to all of this awareness and finally the veil of depression was lifted, the darkness had become light, and it didn't come easy. I'm going to tell you that. I wish I would have had the tools ahead of time, but I didn't. But one thing that was certain the whole entire time, I never stopped saying this because I knew it in the very being of my being. If ever I figure this out, I will never stop teaching and helping other people overcome it. I stuck to that. I drilled that into I can't tell you how many times I said that. This can't be for nothing. There's no way other people could be experiencing things at the depth that I have and still alive. That's what I kept saying. That's the dialogue that kept me alive. There has to be something more. I had had a lot of experiences that could have killed me, like a lot of dangerous acts, a lot of bad behavior on my part that could have created the end, but it didn't. And so I knew there was something more here. And so I'm not sure if that's going too deep or if that is relatable. I tend to attract very deep people who can understand and relate to these experiences. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say you guys can probably understand. So after I get to the other side of it, and the last piece for me was really bringing in that practical, grounded, those modalities of being here on earth. And it was the integrative and embodiment practice. And it was integrating mentally what I think, physically what I feel, and spiritually who I am. And when I integrated those pieces together, and I embodied the entity that I am and the way that God created me for the purpose that I'm here to serve, to create and contribute as a human being in this material world. When all of that came together, guys, it was just like a damp, wet blanket had been removed off of me. And suddenly there was light and I had pep in my step and I could breathe again. And I looked over my shoulder. It was just like I had walked across a stream and I was up on a levee, and I looked back and I said, I'm never going back. I made it. I knew in that moment something had changed. I made it. It was like being in a dark alley or in a trash can with a lid over me. It was so dark. It was so dark for so long. And it was suddenly light and it was cool. And I could feel the sun because everything had lifted, because something had shifted within me. And I wasn't quite sure what it was, but I just knew that I had left hell or purgatory or whatever that was. And it was hell on earth, because hell is the separation from source and divine that is within us. And once I made that connection, I knew I would never lose it again. And at that moment, I started walking forward and I started making new decisions and I started taking different paths, and things opened up for me. And then I had an opportunity that came through online, and someone reached out to me, suggested that I be part of their platform. And the one thing I had to do was write a bestseller book. And for those of you who were here with me, I'm looking, Peggy for sure was one. And I started writing that book. I didn't know what the hell I was going to write about. I said, I can't tell my story. My dad's still alive. I don't want to insult my family. I can't go there. I remember like all of that, like what kind of story, what am I supposed to write? And I remember reading all of those books and throwing them against the wall and being so angry that no one was telling me how. They were just telling me how it was different for them. Well, you know what? I wanted to flip them all off. I don't care how it's different for you. I want you to tell me how to do it. Can all of you relate? I was like, it must be nice to be you, to figure out how to raise kids, to figure out how to stay married, to figure, like, it must be, I was so mad that I said, if ever I figure this out, I'm going to teach other people how to do this. And that's what the Punchline approach is. It is the punchline. Instead of reading all of those books, this is the exact step or steps that I took in order to come to the place that I was at. And I started going backwards. And the first question I asked myself is, how did I figure out how to live through hell? How did I figure out how to raise 5 children? How did I figure out how to stay married? How did I figure out how to make money, how to open a business, how to serve thousands of people? How did I figure that out? And I shut my eyes. And this is the process that came through. I believe I channeled it. I have no idea. I can't tell you more than that. I did not research it. I did not go and get it from anyone else, except this is my woo side. I was on my bike one day listening to a 2014 Hay House event, and Louise Hay said, all you had to do was change your thoughts. I see some LCS coaches here. You know what I'm talking about? Just change your thoughts. It's just a thought. Well, that shit didn't work. And I stopped my bike and I put pause and I said, no, Louise, it's not that easy. We have to dismantle the old belief, the narrative, the dialogue that is in our system, and plant a new one and then move forward. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish your work. And so I was right here down the road on my bike on the side of the road, talking to the sky. So crazy. But the day I went to write the book, I picked up my laptop. I'm typing away, right? I was buffering on Facebook because I didn't know what I was going to write. And when I opened Facebook, it said, "Rest in peace, Louise Hay." And I believe this work is an extension of the work that she brought here. And I suddenly had a very thorough understanding of the how-to in a whole different way. And it just poured through. I wrote it in 30 days. It's written the way I talk. So I've been picked up by a publisher, and we are currently rewriting. So the book is being rebranded. We're filling in context, and we're adding more to it. What I didn't know then is that it was going to be used for coaches to use in their practice to help their clients self-heal, overcome trauma, and release repressed emotions. So now that it has become that, we're going to rebrand it to be that. So that's the story behind the Punchline approach. For those who want to understand what it is, I'm going to give you just a really simple take on the exact steps. And then I'm going to open the floor for questions. I'm going to allow you to come on if you want to come on. We can take the recording off if you want it to be private. And I'm going to just answer any questions that you may have. I do have a couple of questions that was sent in, and so I can go through those. But here's the process. The Punchline approach is an acronym. The P is for presence. And we can put a handful of things in presence. How do you get presence? Do you get in a hot tub of water and soak? Do you smell essential oils? Do you walk in the grass barefooted? Do you tap? Do you do breath work? Do you do yoga and meditation? How do you get to presence? That's the very first step. When I wanted to die, when I thought I was dying, when I couldn't keep my shit together, I would just stop. I might have been crying, but I would stop and I would feel what was going on in my body. So that's the first step. The second step is I would start unpacking, unveiling so that I could understand what had just happened. Because what I was believing, remember, martyr and victim, I have to do this for them to be happy. I have to do this for them to love me. I have to do this for me to be important. I have to do this for my existence to be valid. That's where I was. Remember, I was overworking, overgiving, overdoing. My belief was, this is what I have to do to be accepted, to be honored, to be awarded, to be seen, to be experienced, right? And so I had to unpack that, and I had to recognize that that's the story that was going on. And then the other side of the story, like, it's because there's the victim and the martyr, right? It's both. It's like I had to understand that I was believing I couldn't have what other people had. I wasn't like them. It's not available for me. That's okay for rich people. That's okay for people who go to college. That's okay for people who have families. That's okay for people who have supports. But remember, I came from trailer park. I was 8 months pregnant, sleeping in a car, had no home, had no money. So in my world, in my experience, that doesn't happen for people like us. I can't have what other people have. These were my beliefs that I had to unpack. And you could see how they were clearly leading to depression. I can't have what I want, but I have to keep giving to other people, or I am nobody. I am invisible. I am not good enough. There's something wrong with me. I'm defected. My mother left. My own mother didn't even love me. When I had my first child, I couldn't believe somebody could leave a baby. It made it that much worse. So at 19 years old, I was in even deeper depression with a baby, with no daddy, with no home, like not knowing what the hell I was going to do and how this was happening. I had to unpack all of those beliefs so that I could understand why I was in the position I was in. Once I understood it, then I could navigate. And I want you to see, these are the pieces that are missing. We can't go from this is what I believe and this is what I want to believe without unpacking and understanding the reason. And so the navigate is when we create that interruption, when we change the pattern. That's not me. That's my thoughts. That's my belief. That's my past. That's my experience. So we navigate. No. Pause. Stop. That's not true. Whoa. That's just a habit, right? So presence, unpack to understand, and then navigate. That's when we do something new. It's when we change the neural pathway. Notice the letters line up. I didn't make that shit up. That is not in the book. That happened as the process evolved. It just kept growing and growing and growing, and the letters kept matching up. So we can't change the name. We have to keep the Punchline approach because now it's become an identity of its own. So it's like once you navigate to change the neural pathway, right? And that's how you change the habit and behavior. Those 3 steps, the PUN, are the most prevalent because you're going to do those over and over and over. Pause, get present, unpack to understand. Whoa, navigate the new, the now, the neural pathways. Then you create the vision of what you want. And I remember doing this exercise. I drew a picture of my hand and I wrote on each finger the 5 things I wanted. And then in the palm of my hand that I drew, it's like that turkey. You remember the turkey you used to draw? I put the 5 things. And then in the palm, I wrote the story of what I wanted. I wanted to have an close, intimate family and relationships. I wanted to teach and travel. I wanted my work to be enriching to the world. I wanted to contribute in a way that was creative and unique to me. That's the story I wrote over and over and over and over. So I created that vision, but it's not enough just to think about it. You have to fully embody it. That's what the law of attraction is about. They miss the F. So people think the law of attraction is just thinking something positive, but it's not. It's actually thinking something positive, feeling it in the body, and viscerally embodying it to the point that you believe it. So that's what we do different in Self-Healing Masters. That's what we do in this process. This is how we self-heal. This is how we create new visions that you never thought were possible before. It's like we have to go through this whole entire process. It's super simple, but we forget to do it because it's not how we've been trained and taught, right? We've been taught that we can't have it. It's not available for us. Other people are better than we are. We're not good enough. We got to overdo, overgive, blah, 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 blah. That's what we've been taught. If you want other kids to like you, you need to invite everybody to the party and you need to be nice to everyone and you need to, whatever the story is. So we want to change all that. All that is conditioning. Okay. And then once you create the vision, so remember the vision, I wrote it in my hand. I felt it in my body. Thanks, Louise. I can change that, right? That's not me. This is who I am. I'm a child of God. I'm a creative being. I contribute in ways that feel good and satisfying for me. Then you take the how-to steps. So we don't skip to the action and we don't bypass the emotions. Got it? Tell me in the chat if you understand what I just said. If any of you are in the mindset world, I think you know what I'm talking about. We don't bypass and we don't go into action. So now that you've created it, now that you've envisioned it, now that you've embodied it and you felt it, now you're going to take the action steps because you're going to take the action steps from the person who felt it, from that new identity, from that new understanding. And here are the action steps. Super simple. Choose what you want. Write it down. Choose what you want. Commit to the vision that you felt and created and commit to yourself. That's the second. The third, cultivate as if it already were. What does that mean? You're going to take actions from the person who has already experienced it because it's already happened in the quantum world. As soon as you embodied it and you felt it and you envisioned it, as soon as you did that, it happened. But now we have to wait for linear time to catch up. The only thing that will stop it from happening is your disbelief and falling into the old neural pathway in habit and behavior. Write that down. The only thing that will prevent it, if it is aligned with you, don't go create somebody else's dream. Judgment and comparison, looking what other people are doing. You don't need, listen, if it's not important to you make $5 million, then it's going to be impossible for you because it's not important to you. So don't take someone else's vision. Make sure it feels good to you. And the only thing that will get in the way is if you go into disbelief. For those of you who are in Belief Bootcamp, we discussed this. For those of you who have not, it's in my portal. You can go and grab it. The Belief Bootcamp was killer. Who was there? Let me know. Who was at Belief Bootcamp? Because we went through all of this. Every single person who came to Belief Bootcamp is now in Self-Healing Masters because it was that powerful. Okay. So once you are cultivating as if it already happened, because you're already the identity, you're already the other person, you're already the future you continue. Super hard for some of you because the neural pathway keeps and then your environment and then the old past right? They start bombarding you. That's not who you are. That's not who you're supposed to be. I don't know who you are. You're so selfish. Like all that stuff starts, right? That's what stops it from happening. Not God, not source, not universe, not the quantum field, none of that. It is the conditioning of the environment. It's the religious patterns, the dogmas, the beliefs, the messaging, all of the things that you have been taught about money is bad or happiness is bad or divorce is wrong or all of that stuff is conditioning. Those things are not bad. They're the way that humans pivot when they realize they made a mistake, something went wrong. They married the person that they thought, and then that person changed their mind or what. Like those things are not sinful. But we've been taught this all or none perfection kind of thing. And we stick with stuff that's not working anymore. We don't know how to let it go. And we become the martyrs and the victims of those old identities, these old stories. Compassion, empathy, grace for yourself first, which is leading me to my next topic. Okay, so I'm going to go through this. Present, unveil to understand, navigate to create neural pathways, create the vision that you want, choose, commit, cultivate, continue until it's created. That's it. You do those 5 things in that order, and you will live your life's legacy as an integrated being. That's the problem. We're not integrated mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Society has cut those up. The medical community took your body. The psychiatry took your mentality, took your mind. No one taught us about emotional wellness or emotional healing or emotional maturity. And then religion took spirituality, and they cut all 4, and now we're divided. And so integration is when you bring all those parts together. So living your life's legacy as an integrated being in your natural essence. What is your natural essence? Is the thing your soul came here to do in the meat suit. In, ease, and flow. So that's the punchline in a nutshell. Everybody clear on that? Does it make sense? So leads me to my next topic. And then I 5 more minutes, and then I'm open for questions. Who I work with, who this is for more than anything else. Because you guys are health and wellness practitioners, because you're healing focused entrepreneurs, you help other people heal. But what is the biggest problem? Most of us are wounded healers. We have not healed our own wound, and we are reflecting and projecting in the world. And we're desperately trying to save other people so that we can feel good, so that we can feel worthy. That was the problem. I kept serving other people so I could feel like I was somebody, so I could feel like I was important. So their pain felt so painful for me because I was empathetically calling it in and then trying to fix them. All of my children have some kind of experience with abandonment. Same thing with our pets, same thing with our, like everything. And it was coming from my wound of rejection and abandonment. It was my wound. I was having so much pain about being left out, about not fitting in. And then I was seeing this with other people, and I kept trying to fix them and trying to fix them and trying to fix them. And this is why most of us have become healers and coaches and practitioners in the healing world, is so that we can help people have less pain. But it's in us. Yes, I was a rescuer. I've been healing that and knowing I can't rescue anyone. I can just be a safe space when they're ready. Right. So the work that we do in Self-Healing Masters is for the healer, practitioner, and coach who is helping other people heal, so that you have a supportive community, so that you can do your own work when things come up again. So that's the actual person that we are changing the identity of. We have to heal our own wounds. And when those wounds become scars, then you're going to be able to hold space for anyone under any circumstance without wanting to fix them or without desperately needing to help. You will just be able to do it from a calm space because you have clean compassion for yourself first. Notice when you get most aggravated, when your clients are not getting results, or when they're not getting it fast enough, or when they're not coming, or when they're not paying you. Notice all of that. Those are all signs and symptoms from the wounded healer. And it's inside of us. And once we heal that within us, we seal those leaky, deep, right? We have all these leaks in us that's leaking energy. We seal that up through this work. And then we become a conduit. We become a vessel. The work goes through us and it moves through us, and we no longer cling to it. It no longer affects us. That is the work, especially if you're a massage therapist, if you're a healer, if you're a Reiki practitioner, if you're doing any sort of the healing modality work, if you're coaching, if you're a practitioner, and you seem to be very empathetic and your heart is like very strong, like you feel the heart tugs, you feel those strings pulling. This is the work for you. So that's the Punchline approach. That's the process. That's who it's for. I want to open this up for questions because we've identified why I created it, who it's for, what to do about it, and how we help you. So does anyone want to come on? Do you want to put questions in the chat? Do you want me to kill the recording so that you can have privacy of asking whatever you want? Is there anyone who wants to come on? We have about 15 minutes. I promised I'd be off within the hour. This is 45 minutes long. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of More Than Mindset.